Good morning or good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So give us a search on any of those platforms, and come and join the fun. We put out 3 written articles a day in the morning, lunchtime, and evening here in the UK. And these cover a variety of motorsports from Formula One to IndyCar, NASCAR, touring cars, bikes, rallying, and everything else in between. And they take the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, birthdays, breaking news, any new liveries. And again, anything we can check a stick at motorsport wise. We're here to share a love of motorsport. That's why we're here. So come along and join in the fun. In case you hadn't noticed, we also do live video interviews just like this one. And just like this one, these are streamed on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels only. They're saved in the video section on Facebook and in the live section on our YouTube. So go and give us a follow over on YouTube as well. We've done over 150 of these. I won't name all the guests, but we've had some terrific guests on from across the motorsport spectrum. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with people such as Mr. Mario Andretti, Mr. Jackie Ickx. We've spoken with F1 drivers and sports car drivers, Indy 500 winners, guys like John Watson, Carl Wendlinger, Alex Caffey, Martin Donnelly, Derek Warwick, Stefan Johansson, Mark Blundell, Eddie Cheever, Derek Daly, Karen Chandhok, Willie Ribbs, Alan Jr., Will Power, Alex Polo, many terrific guests who have joined us. We've been very fortunate. So do go and check those out. But don't do it just yet, because we have got another fantastic live guest joining us this evening. Someone I've been wanting to speak to for many years, so I'm very excited. He's raced in Formula One, made 95 Formula One starts. He has taken a class win, and he's finished on the overall podium in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He's Japanese Formula 3000 champion. And he likes climbing up mountains as well, which is very cool. Without any further ado, please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Ukyo Katayama.
Hello, nice to meet you, even such this kind of online meeting.
Yes, this should be a good meeting. It's fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on and sparing some time to talk to us about your career. As I said, I'm very excited to speak with you because as we said off air, I remember watching you when I was young in Formula One. So thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. Okay, folks, we have an extra person joining us. Mr. Katayama has requested that he answers the questions in Japanese, just so we don't have any misunderstandings, and so he can give us some lovely in-depth answers as well. So we have a translator or an interpreter joining us, and her name is Mariko. So she's going to join us as well.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, Mariko. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, very pleased to hear it. And I should say thank you to you for being the go-between between me and Mr. Katayama. You've been very helpful, so thank you very much as well. Just before we get started, I want to say hello to all the people who are already tuning in the comment section. Who we got here? Tracy Hickley and Diffan Evans and Yassine Kachawi. I hope I said that right. And everyone else as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, do put them in the comment section and we'll work them into the chat as we go. So there we are. That's the housekeeping done. Firstly, both, how is everything going? I know you're both like business partners, so I hope everything's going well with the business.
Yeah.
All good? Lovely.
All good. Yes, actually, so we are running a professional cycling team to participate Tour de France Sunday.
Oh wow! Oh well, we of course wish the team very good luck with that. That's fantastic. Okay, I think it's time to get started. Okay, you can obviously reply in Japanese to these. This is no problem at all. I was just wondering, where did your interest in like motorsport first come from?
まあ一番最初とにかくテレビでモナコグランプリを見ました。それでかっこよくて F1 ドライバーになるって学校の先生に伝えたらアホかと言われました。
So I first watched the Monaco Grand Prix. I first watched the Formula One on TV, and I thought it was so cool. So I went back to school one day, and I told my teacher that I was going to become a Formula One driver. And my teacher said, "Are you crazy?"
He said, "You are idiot."
I think that's a natural reaction. I think we can understand why the teacher said that. So obviously you went through school and got all your education and qualifications. How did you first start going racing? Did you go into karting first, or how did it all begin?
全くカートとかは、触ったこともなくて、僕は父親の影響で登山家を目指してたんで、カートとかもやったことがなくて、最初何から始めたらいいかわからないんで、とりあえず学校を卒業してから車の免許を取りました。
So actually, I've never even touched a kart. So my background does not start from karting. Because of my father's influence, I wanted to become a mountaineer. I wanted to climb mountains. And then I decided that I want to become a Formula One driver, but I didn't know where to start. So first of all, after I finished school, I went to get my driver's license. That's where I started.
Obviously, I think the first place to start is a driving license. It helps. Yeah. So that's amazing, because obviously so many people start in karts and work up. I think your old teammate Mark Blundell started on motorbikes, which is slightly different. But yeah, that's amazing. So I'm wondering then, how did you first go racing? Did you secure some sponsorship to go into single-seater racing, or how did all that happen?
正直言うと、お金が全くなくて、サーキットに行くお金もなかったんで、一番のハードルはお金だったんで、サーキットに行こう、交通費もないんで、サーキットに住むことにしました。イコール、正確に言うと、サーキットの前のガレージで働きました。そしたら、お給料もらえるし、技術を教えてもらいました。
So money was the main issue. I didn't have any money. I didn't know where to go. I didn't even have transportation fee to get myself to a circuit. So I decided, okay, then I'm going to live in the circuit. Well, to be exact, I lived in front of the circuit in a garage.
Wow, that's amazing. So you just went there and got involved. And I guess you learned how motorsport works, got to know some people, and then you got into the driver's seat from there.
じゃあそこからモータースポーツの仕組みを知ってスポンサーを獲得してレーサーになったんですか？
いや、スポンサーなんか一個もつかなかったんで、自分のお給料で、出れるレースだけ。で、自分で車を作ったり、自分でエンジンをオーバーホールしたり、メカニックになって、で、なおかつそこに、みんなが捨てたものを直して、そういったものを、販売したりしてお金を稼いでました。
So no, actually, of course, it was not easy to get a sponsor, and I didn't get a sponsor for a long time. What I did was I became a mechanic. So I lived in a garage in front of the circuit. I went to pick up all the garbage that everybody threw away, the tires, the components. I fixed them, and then I sold them, or I helped the drivers there, and that's how I got started.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's such a great, because starting, right at the bottom, I suppose, and then getting into the driver's seat. So when the opportunity came to drive a racing car for the first time, what did you think the first time you drove it? It must have been so exciting.
初めてチャンスが巡ってきて、初めて運転した時感動したと思うんですけど、どんな気持ちでした？
なんか信じてもらえないけど、すごいフォーミュラカーに、フォーミュラフォードみたいな FGS1600 っていうのの5年落ちの、もうポンコツを買って、で、自分で直して出たら、簡単に運転できて、で、コースレコードのコンマ1秒落ちを出したらみんなが信じてくれなくて、で、レース出たら予選でポール取って、決勝で優勝して、その時は筑波サーキットってところのシリーズで全勝したんでチャンピオン取りました。
So actually what I saved up all my money fixing cars, picking up garbage, and I bought a FJ 1800. It was 5 years old, so basically it was nothing.
1016.
So I bought the car, and I raced at Tsukuba Circuit, and I beat the course record. I was 0.1 seconds short of the course record. No one believed me, but for me it was so easy. For the first time I went in the car, I did the circuit, and I almost did the course record, and no one believed that I could do that, but I did. And then I participated in the series, and I won.
Wow. I think when that happens, when you first drive on a circuit and nearly break the course record, you must know that you're naturally quite good at this.
ってことは、初めて運転してコースレコードに近いものを出したら、あ、俺ってこれに向いてるなって思ったでしょって。
この、なんかその入門のフォーミュラーは、これ俺のためにこのカテゴリーで作られてんだと思った。
Yeah, I did. I thought, oh wow, this category is for me. It was made for me. I'm the champion. That's how I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And wow, that's amazing. I love that when people find something that they're almost born to do, that it comes easy to them and they can go and do it. You entered the championship, and I always wonder how a driver feels ahead of their first ever race. Were you nervous, or were you excited, or both? Or...
もちろん最初のとにかくデビュー戦の時はもう緊張して、今みたいなオールレッドからブラックアウトじゃなくてクリスマスツリーっていうのが一個一個つく時だったから、ランプがついた時に足が震えて、クラッチがちょっとこう震えたから車がちょっとガタガタしたのは覚えてる。
So yes, I was super nervous, and at the time, the lights, the starting lights were what we call the Christmas tree, if you remember. So my foot was on the clutch, but I was so nervous, and I started shaking a little bit, and so my foot kind of shook a little bit, and so the car started to shake too, and it just proved how nervous I was.
Wow, I think that's again completely understandable. So this was in Japanese Formula 3. Was it Formula 3, I think?
これフォーミュラ3の時ですか？
それはね、FJ1600 で、1600で、FJ1600 っていう入門用の、フォーミュラフォードみたいなんでね。で、筑波でチャンピオン取って、そしたら、そんな田舎でチャンピオン取っても当たり前だって言われて、鈴鹿に来いって言われて、鈴鹿に行っても住むとこがなかったんで、白子っていう砂浜でトラックのライトバンで寝たり、車の排気場のライトバンの中で生活しながら仕事をして、で、鈴鹿でもレース出たら、一応チャンピオン取ったんで、1回だけ2位になったけど、あとは全部勝って、で、鈴鹿でもチャンピオン取ったら F3。
The first race was the FJ 1600. So it was like what we call a Formula Ford. That was my first race. And then, so like I told you, I won the series in Tsukuba, but everybody said being a champion in Tsukuba means nothing. You have to move on. So then I moved to Suzuka. But of course, I didn't have money either. So I decided to live a little away from Suzuka. Sometimes I lived on my truck. And I continued to work as a mechanic so that I can support myself at least. And then, that's how I got started.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, yeah, firstly, congratulations on winning the championship all those years ago, of course. You then moved up into Formula 3 with Hasemi Motorsports. Was the car? I imagine the car was very different to the Formula Ford with the aerodynamics and the slicks and the wings and everything. Was it a big change?
フォーミュラ3に移って車も変わってフォーミュラフォードからフォーミュラ3に移ってもう全然違いましたか？
生まれて初めFJ でチャンピオン取ったら日産のそのワークスドライバーだった長谷美さんから F3 にうちで走れって言われて、で走れることになったんだけど、車がお金がなくてマカオグランプリっていうところでクラッシュして眠ってた AA エジエルグって AA エルグさんが乗ってた車がクラッシュしてて、それをポンコツを買ってきて、で、自分で修理しなきゃいけなくて、エンジンはまあ日産で、から出してもらってたんで、で、その日産でテストドライバーを始めてたんで、生まれて初めて乗っかったスリックタイヤはグループ C カーっていうルマン24時間の車だったんだけど、だからあんまりそういった意味では、ダウンフォースとかスリックタイヤとかは強烈には感じなくて、ただ、ポンコツの車だったから F3 が自分の車が遅くて、めちゃくちゃいつも腹が立ってた。
So I became, so Hasemi-san gave me a seat as a Nissan works driver. But again, there was no money. So a car that crashed in the Macau Grand Prix, which was driven by Mr. L, was the car that I was given. So basically like trash. And so I had to fix it. But the engine was provided by Nissan. And like I said, I was a test driver. So they gave me the engine from Nissan, but I fixed this old little trashy car. And it was a Group C car, so it was like a car that you would use in the Le Mans. So for me, the downforce was the same, so it wasn't a very big change for me. But the fact that the car was so slow, I can't tell you how frustrated I was every time because it was so slow.
Yeah. I can imagine that's the worst thing for a driver, isn't it? Having a slow car. But I just find it amazing that that you fixed the car and went racing. That's absolutely fantastic. I don't think there's many drivers today that could do that. I just want to talk about that first season in Formula 3 in Japan. There was Aguri Suzuki was on the grid, who we're all familiar with. Your countryman. Did you have any expectations or hopes going into the season, or was it just, I'd like to do well, but the most important thing is to learn? Do you think?
F3 に初めて入ってアグリさんと一緒だったと思うんですけど、F3 に臨むにあたってすごいいろいろ自分で期待しましたか？それともとにかくまずは学ぼうと思いましたか？どんな気持ちでしたか？
とにかく勝たないと未来がないと思ったから、もう勝つことしか考えてなかったけど、ただ言い訳だけど、僕が買ってきた車は、もうマカオで潰れてたフォーミュラアトランティックっていう車 F3 用に改造したりしたので、アグリさんはワークスのナンバーワンドライバーだったから、ラルトっていう新しい車とかを、買ってもらったりして、で、タイヤとかも違ってたから、言い訳だけど、そういう中では、雨の中でとかしか結局速さを見せられなかったから、今はみんなライバルで仲いいけど、当時はもう本当にライバルで絶対に負けられないっていうね、向こうは経験があったけど、そういう気持ちの方が強かった。
So the thing that I had in mind was I need to win in order to continue. So just to win, that was the only thing that I thought about. And I don't want to make excuses, but at the time, Aguri was the number one driver at the team, and so he had the best car, the Laruto. He had the best car, and he had the tires that he had and I had. We were completely different. And again, I fixed a trashy little car that crashed at the Macau, so everything was different. So at the time, I was only able to prove myself how fast I was when it rained, and now we are all good friends. Aguri and I, we are good buddies. But back then, he was a rival to me. So I just had to win. That was my only thoughts.
Yeah, and that's often the case, wasn't it? Especially in the mid 1980s, where we're talking here, there was a number one driver, and obviously that was Mr. Suzuki. In that season, though, given that the car, as you said, was trash, you finished 6th overall in the championship. You must have been quite happy with that, even though you wanted to win, of course.
特に1980年代はアグリさんがぶっちぎりの一番だったと思うんですけど、その当時では。だからおっしゃってたそのライバルだったとか勝ちたいっていう気持ちはよくわかります。そのシーズンについて話したいんですけど、そのゴミみたいな車をご自分で改造したにもかかわらず、成績は6位っていうすごくいい成績だったと思うんですけど、嬉しかったですか？
いや、全然嬉しいどころか、悔しくて自分が、まあ、ゴミみたいな存在にこう持ってて勝たなきゃいけないと思ったから、ただ実際にはそのさっき言ったみたいに雨の中でも僕が3位争いしたり、アグリさんより前を走ってて、で、後ろからアグリさんがスピンしてきて僕にぶつかってきたり、まあ、先輩の人たちとかを、まあみんな全然新車でね、いくなったけど、やってたから、シーズン終わってからは、次の年はお前がナンバーワンドライバーになって一番新車を買って、エースだよって言われたんだけど、まあそこにいたらなんかメーカーのテストドライバーでお給料はもらえるけど、なんかテレビで見たモナコグランプリ見て F1 になるっていうのとは違うから、断って、翌年からヨーロッパに生まれて初めて飛行機に乗っかって、そのまま行ってしまったと。
So no, I was not happy at all. I was really disappointed. You know, my little trashy car, like I said, I could only prove myself in the rain. And there was one time when Agree was behind me and I was in front of him and I was doing a good race, but then he spun and he crashed into me. So all these little things bothered me a lot. But after the season, the team said, okay, next season you're going to be our number one driver. You're going to be our number one. But I thought, yeah, number one, but it's still like a test driver at the team, and it's nothing like an F Formula One driver that I saw on TV a long time ago. So I said, thank you, but no. And then the next year, for the first time in my life, I hopped into a plane and went to Europe.
Yes. Well, firstly, I love the fact that even though the car wasn't best, you of a winner. It was like, you've done the best in that you could in the car, but it's still want more, which is the best way to be. And as you said, that brings us very nicely onto flying over all the way over here to Europe. You were 22, 23 years old, maybe?
22、23歳でした。
22だね、まだ。
I was 22.
22. That's a huge change, a different culture, a different language. And it was 3 years in France. How did all that start? How did the opportunity come up to go to France?
最初雑誌のオートスポーツって日本の、まあ、世界中売ってるけど、編集長からレーシングスクールがあるよって言われて、それで、まあ、イギリスのジム・ラッセルとか、そういうフォーミュラ4のそういったところで受けて、一番になると小学生になれるよとかって聞いたんだけど、間違えて、ウィンフィールドのフォーミュラ・ルノーの方申し込んじゃって、で、そっちの方を受けに夏に、ポール・リカールの方で受けて、で、その時にベストタイムは、エリック・コマとか一緒だったけど、僕が一番のタイムは出したけど、まあもうレースをやってたから、小学生にはなれなくて、で、その代わりガレージを紹介されて、フォーミュラ・ルノーをフランスでやることにしました。
It all started out an editor-in-chief at the Japanese magazine called Autosport. He told me that about these racing schools that were in Europe. And at the time, I think he explained to me about the school that Jim Russell was doing. And the editor told me that if I become the fastest driver at the school, then I get a scholarship and then that would be my first step to becoming a Formula One driver. But I don't know what happened, but I made a mistake. And instead of going to England, I went to France and enrolled myself in the French school of the racing school. And I was with Eric Coma. So instead of going to where I should have gone to England, I flew myself to France. And then I became the fastest driver at the school, but I already had a career as a professional racing driver, so I didn't get the scholarship. But the school recommended me to a team, and that's how it all began.
Wow, that's cool. It would have been great to have you over in the UK. That would have been excellent. Over here in England, that would have been great. Racing around some of our old circuits that we have here. So when you got there, obviously, apart from the racing, it's a completely different culture and a different language. Was it difficult to begin with?
To be honest, it was so hard.
I thought it might be. I think any young European racer going out to Japan would have the same problem. Completely different. But you ended up was it Formula Renault and then into Formula 3 in France and all the way through. I imagine the circuits in France are very different to the circuits and tracks that you were racing out in Japan. Obviously, you've got some amazing circuits out there like Suzuka and Fuji and places like that. Were they different styles of circuits? Were they like more difficult to learn than when you learned the ones at home in Japan?
まあ、サーキット自体は初めてだったけど、走ったらそんなのすぐ慣れちゃうから、それよりもレースがアグレッシブで、まあ、この前のメキシコグランプリじゃないけど、ペレス対ローソンみたいだったり、まあ、フェルスタッペンなんかやったみたいにみんながぶつけ合うから、で、まあ、ポールポジションも取ったし、そうだったんだけど、まあ、1周目にスピンしたりして、そこから追い上げたりなんかするときに、ブレーキングがとにかく深くて、みんなを抜いてたから、それでまあ、フランスのレキップっていう新聞が、アルビっていうサーキットの時に、日本人がフランス人に本当のブレーキングを教えてくれた神風ブレーキングショーっていうので、それからずっと神風って呼ばれるようになって。
The tracks were different, but I got used to it right away. That was not the problem at all. What I was really surprised at was the aggressive racing style. So, just in the Mexico Grand Prix over the weekend, we saw Perez and Lawson. The style of the racing was so aggressive, and that was something that I was shocked. But I was able to get the pole position. But I would start off well, but then I would spin on the first lap, and then my braking was so hard. And then someone, when we were at the LB circuit, someone said, "Okay, here's the real racer who's teaching the French how to brake." And that is when I got the name Kamikaze Braking, and then my Kamikaze nickname started from there.
That's great. That's great. So you had to change your driving style and learn a new style, which is understandable. Excuse me. Did you have any favorite circuits when you were racing in France? Because they were all new, as I said, they're all different. Were there any that you really liked after you'd raced them on a few times?
フランスで好きなサーキットってあんまりなかったなっていう感じで。
No, I didn't have any favorite circuits in France.
As an Englishman, I can't say anything. I can't say anything about that.
イギリス人だからフランス人の愚痴は言えないけど、そうなんですねって。
ただポーのサーキットとかで、それからポーっていうね、市街地のサーキットであるんだけど、初めて走った時、もう、すごい感動したというか、ショッキングで、何のガードレールなんかもちゃんとしてないんだけど、一部しか。公園の周りとか歩道を走っちゃうみたいに。で、その後 F3000 でも走ったし、まあ、すごい面白いサーキットだったね。モナコ以上に。
So I didn't have any favorite circuits in France, but the circuit in Po was kind of crazy. I think it was beyond Monaco. There were how do you say, guardrails? Like not fences, but the guardrails. But we would be driving on pedestrian walks and in the park. So it was shocking in a kind of an interesting way to me. So I think if there were a favorite, that would be my favorite.
I like that. I quite like Po. I've spoken with a lot of people who have raced at Po. Guys, recently guys like Tom Coronel, but before there was like Kenny Atchison and like Tommy Byrne and all those guys who've raced there before, and they all said the same thing. Said everyone talks about Monaco, but they said if you think Monaco's crazy, go and race at Po because it's even more crazy. It's a circuit I'd love to go to. I did see though on the grid that year sorry, this is 1986. There was some very, very good drivers on the grid. Obviously, there was yourself. There was like Yannick Dalmas. There was like Jean Alesi, Eric Bernard, Philippe Gache, Eric Bachelard, who went to do IndyCar, our good friend Perry McCarthy, and all those guys. And it was a strong grid, wasn't it?
1986年ってもうすごい総勢素晴らしいドライバーがいっぱいいましたよねって。
全然誰がみんなすごいっていうか速いなっていうかライバルだけども、今みたいにその後にみんな出世してねすごくなるけど、その頃はみんなただの子供だからただのライバルで全員がただの敵だったけど、それよりはこっちはまあ大きいクラッシュをして、フォーミュラルノがデュケンっていうところから F3 とかを途中から招待されて、ただで車に乗れるようになったんだけど、ただし車が言っちゃ悪いけども速くなくて重くて大きくてとてもレースにならなくて、もうとにかく苦労して最後お金がなくなって帰る日本に帰国しなきゃレースやめなきゃいけないなっていう時に一回だけアビアっていうところのレーシングスクールのラルトを借りて出たらそういうエリック・ベルナーやらそういう後に F1 でもみんな一緒にあるエリック・コンマとかみんなとそこではレースができたからやっぱり車ってのが大きいなっていうのはね。
So yes, as you mentioned, we had fantastic drivers, but back then we were all kind of like kids. So eventually they all become great drivers. But at the time in 1986, we were all the same. We were kids, and I just looked at them as my rivals and my enemies. But anyway, so I had a big crash, and I wasn't able to continue Formula Renault anymore. And then Duquesne came to me and said, "You can drive. You can drive." And they said I didn't have to pay anything. They let me do it for free. So I said, okay. So I went, but the car was not too bad mouth, but the car was horrible. It was big. It was big. It was heavy. It was slow. And then I started running out of money. Just the basics of living in a foreign country. I didn't have any more money left. So I thought, okay, I have to go back to Japan. And then for my last race, I was able to, the racing school lend me their I don't know, and maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Laruto.
Oh yes, the Ralph car, yeah.
And they lent it to me. And it was great, and I thought, okay, to become a good driver, it's all about the car. That was my last impression.
Yeah, I think we can all agree you could be the best driver in the world. You could be Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher, but if you've got a bad car, it's not going to work, and it's going to make you feel bad. So that was the end of your time in Europe, and you went back home to Japan. Formula 3000, which at the time, again, this is the time that I remember watching Formula 3000, the international series, and the cars were absolutely crazy. They just looked so. Even when I was 7 years old, I thought that's not safe. How did you find the F3000 car back in Japan?
車自体はとにかく予選用タイヤが日本はあったんで。当時 F1 が来てるタイムとかの数秒しか変わんないような感じで走ってたけど、それよりもちょっとタイヤが、これも言い訳だけど、ブリヂストンしか勝てなくて、で、ヨーロッパでやって、日本でスポンサーをしてくれる人が、応援してくれる人が見つかって、で、出させてもらってたけど、正直最初はまたいい車、新車なんか買えないから、ガレージに眠ってた車を買って自分たちで直してみたいなレースだったから結果が良くなくて、で途中から親が家を売ってくれて、それでそのお金で新車を買って出たらいきなりタイヤが当時負けてるって言われてるタイヤであっても5位とか最終戦は2位争いとかで、そういった星野さんやら関谷さんやらとか そういう人たちと一緒に2位争いをしてて、最終的にちょっとぶつかって人とぶつかっちゃうんだけど、そういうふうにしたら、翌年からヨーロッパで F3000 やるかって誘われたんで、その日本製の車で、それはあんまり良くなかったけど、そっちに飛び乗ってしまって。それがだから、読んでると最初の出会いだったよね。
Yes, the cars in fact were crazy. You know, when you look at the time that we were racing, compared to Formula One, the cars that we were driving at Formula 3000, the times that we were racing at was incredibly fast. It was of course it was a different car, different race, but even if you compare it to Formula One, it was those Formula 3000 cars were just fast and crazy. But you know, at the time, in Japan, only those cars with Bridgestone tires were the cars that were winning. But of course, I didn't have Bridgestone tires. But anyway, I came back to Japan, and then I found a sponsor. But the sponsorship wasn't enough for me to buy a new car. So we had to buy an old car, and then I had to fix it. So, you know, the results that we did have great results. And then one day my parents said, okay, we're gonna mortgage our house. And they mortgaged our house, or my parents mortgaged their house for me. And I bought a new car, a new fresh car. And but not to make any excuses, but my tires were not Bridgestone, so I wasn't the fastest, but still I was able to come in like 5th place. And then I was driving with Japanese drivers like Sekiya-san, and racing against him to become the second on the podium. And then I had a crash, this and that. But then I got a call and said, why don't you come over to Europe and race the Formula F3000? So maybe it wasn't the best decision of all because it wasn't a great car, but still I said, okay, I'm gonna head back to Europe.
Wow, that's amazing that your parents did that for you, to have that kind of that like belief in you, and obviously that love for you as well, which is it's a lovely thing to do. Nice to have a new car as well. I have just seen a question that's come in here from Paul Ryder, who's watching on YouTube. Good morning, Paul. He said, how much was a step? How big was the step from Formula 3 to Formula 3000 back then? Because we now have Formula 3 and Formula 2, which I guess is in comparison the same thing. The gap between Formula 3 and Formula 2 feels a lot smaller now than it does between Formula 3 and Formula 3000 when you were racing.
今は F2 と F3 のその違いが小さいように感じるんだけど、右京さんが走ってた頃の F3 と F3000 の違いっていうのはどんなものでしたかって。
とにかく体力が必要だったのは、そのさっきの F1 とスピードがっていうのは、ちょっと説明する必要があるのは、予選用タイヤがあったのね。ワンラップスペシャルの一周持たないようなタイヤがあって、だからコーナーをどこもかしも全開でいかなきゃいけない感じで、それで首が持たなきゃいけないとか、とにかくパワーステもないから体力が必要。
ごめんなさい、予選用タイヤってさっきのブリヂストンの話。
So I need to add a small explaining. So when I drove the Formula 3000 in Japan, so we had a special qualifying tire.
Okay.
So now all category doesn't have a qualified tire now. So it's all controlled tire. That's why so steering wheel was so heavy, and I needed a strong neck.
Oh yeah.
That's different.
Okay.
So modern Formula racing car. So no power steering wheel.
Wow. Even as someone who isn't a racing driver, no power steering in those cars. Wow, that's incredible. That's crazy. No, thank you. That's great. So yeah, and I think the gap between F3 and F2 is a lot more different today. Very quickly, you won the championship, Japanese F3000 championship, 1991. Was it 1991? I think it was.
チャンピオンね、F3000。
That must have felt fantastic, because that was the it was the one step below Formula One. You know, Formula 3000 across the world was one step below Formula One. You'd raced in F3000, the international series as well. I guess your eyes were now on Formula One.
まあ、そのさっき言った F3000 でヨーロッパ行くかって言われて、行ったら、その車がまあちょっと国産だったから、国産で F1 を目指す車だったから、正直言うと戦闘能力が低くて、で、翌年91年からその純粋なまあヨーロッパの車の普通のローラーっていうやつに乗っけてもらって、キャビンレーシングっていうので、まあ出たら、まあ最初からその年はポジション取ったり、そうやってまあ、チャンピオン取れたんだけど、まあ、その前年のその良くない車の時には、そのチームメイトでグループ C、グループ A っていうレースやってる相棒が死んじゃったり、まあ、遠回りしたけど、91年にチャンピオン取ったら、まあ、知ってる通り日本タバコさんが F1 に参戦する時で、
この
F1
国産
に行かない
日本の車ってことね。
そうそう、その時でもう一回ポーとかヨーロッパの F3000 に出たんだけど、まあ、それも、まあ、言い方悪いけど申し訳ないけど、車が本当に戦闘能力がなかったんで、苦労したけど、その91年にキャビンレーシングで、まあ、チャンピオン取ったから。
When I first participated in F3000, the car was from Japan, and it was not a very good car, to say the least. It was horrible. But then in '91, I was able to change cars and from cabin racing, so getting the pole position and then won the champion eventually. But when I first started, or when I restarted in Europe, the first car I had was horrible.
It seems to be the case. You've had some horrible cars, which makes your journey to Formula One even more impressive, which is great. I've just seen another question here from YouTube. Said I've been asked to ask you about Mooncraft that did F3000 European afterwards, and I have to ask this as well. How was Damon Hill as a teammate? Because he's English.
もうデーモンも僕が最初ヨーロッパでその車でレースやり出した時にあまりにも結果が悪いからまあ、時差ボケとかでその行ったり来たりで日本とヨーロッパのそのせいもあると思ってヨーロッパの方のドライバーはヨーロッパを立てることにしたんだけどそのドライバーが最初マーク・ブランデルでその後デーモン・ヒルでとかってなったんだけど結局全員ひどくてやっぱり車のおまけに最後日本人のドライバーがそれで死んじゃったからまあ残念なことだったけどそのチームはまあ後でスポンサーとしてねフットワークが F1 にアーローズとか組んでいくことにはなったけど車は日本製ではなくなっちゃったね。
So, like I said, the first car that I had was a Japanese car, and it was horrible. And then I was going back Europe, Japan. So I had all these the jet lags, the time lags. So the team decided to have for Europe a European driver, and so first it was Brandel, and then it was Damon, and they were horrible drivers. They were very bad. They could not win any races. And then
The result was bad. They were good driver, but the car was shit, and the result was also rubbish. So we improved the car wasn't very good.
So bad car means you're not bad all. And then there was an incident where my colleague, a Japanese driver, passed away in a race. So there were sad times as well, but then eventually it became on to become arrows. So yeah, they were my teammates. The cars were horrible, so they weren't able to show any results, but it was good times.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad it was good times. That's good to hear. Excuse me. Just quickly before we get on to Formula One, I did notice when I was doing some research here, you seem to have some very good results at places like Fuji and at Suzuka. The very fast circuits with corners like 130R, where you have to be a bit crazy. Did you like the faster circuits that you had better than the slower
Mickey
ones, I guess?
Mouse circuit. I like the fast circuit. So like a Silverstone, Spa-Francorchamps, Hockenheim.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, I hate slow circuits because I didn't have a proper technique because
Okay.
I didn't learn anything by the go-karting.
Right.
Karting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of
Just
glad
I
that you mentioned.
always.
Just go fast. I'm kind of glad that you mentioned Hockenheim. The old Hockenheim circuit was fantastic. I always used to love the German Grand Prix when I was a kid because it was just so fast, and it was great. So we have to talk about Formula One, of course. You've obviously won the F3000 Championship. You've raced in F3000 in the International Series. I hope I've got this right. You got quite a lot of sponsorship from like the Japanese tobacco industry. Firstly, how did that sponsorship come about, and how did the move to the La Rousse F1 team happen?
やっぱりまだ当時は日本人はまあ未だにそうだけど F1 で優勝してないから車を作ってないその例えばフィンランドのねドライバーだってあんなに勝ってんのにね日本人ってまだ勝ってなくてそういう意味では実績ないから中島さんがホンダだったりまあそうやってスポンサーがとかいろんなお土産がないと乗れない時代だったから、まあ、僕はそれでまあ、キャビンで日本タバコでチャンピオン取って、で、キャビンが行ったり、その後マイルドセブンにつながるときでは、すごいいいタイミングでチャンピオン取ったから、まあ、そのおかげで、まあ、ラルースをスポンサーしていけたっていうだけだよね。
タバコのスポンサーはどうやってついたんですか？
これチームについたわ。
So the cigarette company, the tobacco company, was already a sponsor to the team. So it wasn't really me who brought the sponsorship. But well, to this day, there are no Japanese riders who have won the championship. So it was difficult for a Japanese driver to step into Formula One. So unless you had sponsorship with you, there wasn't a seat ready for you. Even at my time, we had Finnish drivers who were racing really good, but the Japanese, even with Nakajima, Satoru Nakajima, the Japanese weren't able to deliver the results. So unless we had a big sponsor, we didn't have a seat. So that's how it all became to be.
Yeah. I kind of and I do remember at the time, obviously there was like Keke Rosberg was from Finland, as you said, and people like that. And I was just thinking, the only Japanese driver I remember when I was young, before you and Mr. Suzuki came along, was like Satoru Nakajima. And he had, was it Honda backing, didn't he, and things like that. Another thing. I guess when the opportunity came up to go to Formula One, it must have been so exciting. Were there a few options for teams that you could go to, or that were interested in you, or was it just the La Rousse team?
F1 のチーム、F1 に上がれることになって、チームの選択肢はいっぱいあったんですか？それともラルースだけだったんですか？
あとはブラバムっていうところがやっぱり F1 に参加するかっていう話があって、でまあどっちかっていう話だったけど、まあ最終的にはとにかくラルースさんしかいなかったから。ブラバム。すごい有名なやつに出て。
There was I eventually went to La Rousse, but the other offer that I had was from Brabant.
Yeah, from Brabham, yeah.
And they said that they were going to enter Formula One, so it was one or the other, but at the end I went to La Rousse.
Okay, no, that's great. And as someone has just said, actually, one of the best looking cars, I think, in the history of Formula One. The car looked absolutely amazing, all the colours and the lines, it was amazing. the first time you drove it, what did you think when you first drove a Formula One car? Because I've spoken to a lot of people and they've said that the most impressive thing wasn't the speed, it was the braking. Um, what were your thoughts the first time you drove the car?
まあ、ランボルギーニのエンジンも素晴らしくて音もいいしね、あれだけども、まあそんなことよりも、最初にテレビで見たF1 のシーンに自分が入れたっていうので、学校の先生にお前はアホかって言われてっていうのを、まず見返しに行かなきゃっていうのと、で、初めての南アフリカのキャラミっていうところに入った時には、もうそこには、まあ、プロストがいて、セナがいて、マンセルがいてって、もうみんなのサインもらわなきゃっていうので、もうミーハーで、もう嬉しくて、車なんかとにかく、サーキットは滑るし、危ねえなってだけで、ただ、ランボルギーニのエンジンはすごかったね。
The sound of the engine of the Lamborghini, oh my God. That was it was music to my ear. But you know, the thing that I thought about once I reached Formula One is, look at me, I'm in the TV that I saw when I was a kid. And then the second thought was, okay, I'm going to tell that teacher who told me that I was stupid that my dream. I told myself I'm going to revenge him. That's the thoughts I had. But joking aside, and then I went to South Africa to participate in the race. And you know, there was Senna, there was Prost, there was Mansell, and I was sort of like a group. I was looking at them as though my dream drivers, and I wanted to run to them and get their autographs because it was just like I was living in a dream. So yeah. But you know, the circuit was not a good circuit. You slip a lot. So, but to me, I saw all my dream drivers. So that was just fantastic for me.
That's so lovely to hear, because I think everyone watching now and anyone who's going to watch this back later knows exactly how you feel. I mean, I think as motorsport fans, we're still the same. There's still, you know, oh, that's this driver, that's that person, and it's so lovely that you had that, even though you were about to go and race against them. That's lovely. I love that. And as someone's just said in the comments section, the cars did sound, you know, they sounded like proper Formula One cars then, didn't they? I remember I was at Silverstone in 1988 and one car went past and I nearly cried. It was the sound was incredible. Just, it sounds so different now, doesn't it? It doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
You said that first race in South Africa, you said you didn't, you know, the circuit wasn't great and everything like that, but you took, I think you qualified 18th. You finished 12th in the race, which for a first race in the car that you had must have been good, you know, just to finish the first race.
まあ、ただ、まあ、ゴールしただけでもう、あれだったけども、とりあえずその予選18番手っていうのは、当時予備予選じゃないけど、そういうのも、みたいに予選もすごい、グリッドもね、すごかったし、チームメイトにデビュー戦で勝った人って少ないらしくて、まあ、もしベルトラには悪いけど、俺の方が上だったし、そういう意味では、すごいこう、スピードだけをいつも評価されたから、まあ、まだただゴールすることのが大事でね、ラルさんにはサーキットの間の道を覚えろって、2年目はサーキット覚えろって、でそこから勝負すればいいって言われたから。
So yeah, 12th it wasn't impressive, but at least I finished. But more being 18th in the qualifier was good because the qualifying system was different at the time. Remember, and also I was told at the time that no one had. It was the first time in Formula One for a new driver to win against his teammate who has been in the team. So that was interesting for me. And the second year, my team said, okay, now you've done it. The second year, you have to know the circuits. You have to like put it in your head. You have to memorize. You have to know the circuit is what they told me. So my goal was to just always to win, but to of course finish the races.
Yeah, gotcha. One thing I did want to ask you about, we've obviously got the Grand Prix coming up this weekend at Interlagos in Brazil. Two things. Firstly, you finished, was it ninth, I think, which was the best result of the season. It's a very physically demanding circuit, and it's very tricky. Because had you, well, obviously you hadn't raced there before. Were you tired afterwards? Because it looks very, very difficult.
もうね、ただでさえ疲れるのに G がかかって、で、そのウィンドスクリーンってこう風よけのコックピットの先にあるパーツが壊れて、首に直にストレートの風が当たるもんだから、ゴールしてからもう首が支えられない、口でご飯が噛めない、インテルラゴスって、ただでさえ疲れるサーキットなんだけど、あれはひどいレースで疲れてね。
Yes, the circuit, as you said, is a tough circuit, and just driving or just racing with the G-force, it's very, very tiresome. But on that day, my windscreen broke, so the wind was directly coming at me. So after I finished the race, I couldn't keep my neck straight. I couldn't move my mouth. I couldn't eat. It was just, it just completely drained me out.
Wow, that's amazing. Goodness me. That's probably the one circuit you don't want the windscreen to break, isn't it? Because it's so strong. Just one thing I've just thought of. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I spoke with Robert Dornbos, who raced in Minardi and Red Bull and all that. He said when you drive up the hill and into the main straight, it gets very narrow and the grandstands are there. He said it was the only time he could hear the fans over the sound of the engine. Obviously, it was a different time for you. The engines were louder, but what are your memories of driving through that part of the circuit? Because even as a fan, it looks amazing.
もうブラジルのファンはほら、セナとか、そういうのはもう熱狂的だけども、ブラジルの思い出ではね、多分彼が聞きたいのは、アグリさんとぶつかったんじゃないかって質問に書いてあったんだけど、突然、スコールみたいなのが来るんだけど、レース中走ったら突然土砂降りになって、で、直線でスピンしたの。で、スピンして、直線で、ぶつかって止まったら、同じようにアグリさんもぶつかってて、二人でそこで日本人がブラジルの日本の反対側で止まってたっていうね。
Brazil, of course, with Senna, it's just phenomenal. But not a sneak preview, but just going through the questions that I had read in advance. I think maybe you would like to know what happened between me and Aguri in Brazil, because we raced each other, and then suddenly there was a squall, a storm, a rainstorm.
Yeah.
And he spinned, he spun and he crashed, and 2 Japanese drivers, and we crashed each other, and we were out of the race. So when I think about Brazil, that is something that does come back to me.
Yes, sure. I'd forgotten about that. He was in the footwork, wasn't he? He was in footwork, and yeah. A shame that it happened. But yeah. But it's an amazing place to go racing, and looking forward to the Grand Prix this weekend. So it was a pretty. The car wasn't reliable. I guess it was frustrating that you didn't finish so many races. But did you enjoy your first season in Formula One?
エンジョイをしてたっていうよりは、例えば1年目で、自分が攻めすぎて、最初はサーキットを学べって言われたのに、途中から12位、12位、9位とかって来たから、よし、じゃあ次は入賞するんだって言って、攻めすぎて、やっぱりスピンしたり、自分がミスばっかりしたのね。で、だけどカナダの時には予選11位からで、あと数周ってところで5位走ってて、で、前のドライバーを追っかけてて、それを抜けば4位だって思った時にシフトミスしてね、エンジン壊しちゃったの。それが今も悔しい。
It wasn't really about enjoying. I was really aggressive. And as in that season, I was 12th, 10th, 9th, and I had anticipated myself, oh my God, maybe I can reach the podium. And so I was too aggressive with my driving. And so obviously I made mistakes. Especially the one that still haunts me to this day is the race in Canada where I was 5th. And I thought, oh my God, if I overtake one more guy in front of me, then I will be 4th. And then of course I all that made me cause a mistake, and my shifting was not correct, and so but so yeah, but that
made a
Canada race,
stupid
it still
mistake.
haunts me.
Yeah, I actually remember that race. I remember when they put the names up on the top 6, and I saw your name there. I was like, oh, wow. Because obviously to do that in the car that you had was amazing. It was amazing. It was a shame.
言い訳になっちゃうんだけど、俺カートもやってなかったし、その入門用のレーシングカーで1年間に最初の6レースとか、次の鈴鹿行っても6レースだけとか、F3 でも6レースとか、で、ヨーロッパ来ちゃってお金なくて4レースだけとか、やっぱり普通に子供の頃から英才教育やってたりするんじゃなくてのと全然違って、誰も教えてくれなくて、テレビで見て、誰も教えてくれなくてやったから、F1 で練習してたんだよね。だから最初の子に笑われて、あいつはもうひどすぎるって、走るジョークだって言われてて、でもその F1 で車がいいと、そのいい車に乗ったりいい状態だと、そうやってたまに速く走れてて。
Like I said at the beginning, I never touched a kart before I went into racing. And I never really did a full season either. In Japan, I did 6 races, and then in F3, I did 6 races. And when I came over to Europe for the first time, I only did 4 races. So, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but no one really taught me. So for me, it was like I was learning for the first time in Formula One. I'm here at the Formula One stage, but I'm learning now. So that's how I felt. So a lot of people said, oh my God, what a running joke, because I didn't know what to do, and I just wanted to be fast, but I didn't have all the education that all the other guys had. They were all trained from when they were very little. So, but when I did get a good car, I was able to deliver some good results. So, I guess all in all, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've never really thought about. Obviously every driver pretty much has come through karts and all the junior series, but you didn't, as you say. I mean, I think like learning in Formula One, that's a tough place to learn, isn't it? I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Wow.
I want to apologize for everyone, so I'm sorry.
It's great. I want to talk about the move to the Tyrrell team. Obviously, it's an English team, and I think we should be proud of Tyrrell and what they did in F1 history. Did that move come about due to the sponsors as well? Because it was Mile 7, wasn't it, with the sponsors?
そう。ちょっとラルースさんのとこでついてるスポンサーでちょっと問題があって、日本タバコさんからの指示で、突然、その3年契約だったのをティレルに移れって言われて、で、移ったんだけど、それが、ティレルがもうお金がなくて、3年前の中島さんが乗ってた車を改造して、そこにヤマハのエンジン積んで、それでいきなりレースで出したから、また南アフリカのダイスのキャラミ行った時とか、チームメイトのアンドレアと一緒にギアが錆びちゃってて、ギアが入らないとか、それで2人ともスタートできなくてリタイアとかね。シーズン前半はひどかった。
The reason I moved to Tyrrell was at La Rousse, there was a bit of a sponsorship issue. So the reason I moved to Tyrrell was on the orders of back at the time, my sponsor. But I went to Tyrrell, a great place, but a great team. But oh my God, they had no money. Like seriously, they had no money. So we were using a car that Satoru Nakajima was riding in 3 years before then.
Yeah, the 19.
So a 3-year-old car with a Yamaha engine now, and and so we went with this car to again back to South Africa, and and you might not believe it, but the gears were rusted. So me and my teammate, we couldn't even start the race.
Wow. I didn't know. I mean, I kind of knew the car was old. I didn't know that the rusted gear. Oh my goodness! Wow. And obviously, your teammate actually that year. I've just seen a comment. If we go on YouTube. Hello, David. Your teammate was Andrea De Cesaris, who very sadly is no longer with us. He had a reputation for crashing and things, and I always thought it was very, very unfair. Obviously, he was very experienced. Did he help you, and what was he like as a teammate?
助けてはくれなかったけど、アドバイスをくれたりとか、だけど、PI システムっていうデータがあって、で、彼のそのデータと僕のデータを比べると、例えば、スパのオールージュっていうとこがあって、彼はね、本当のその古い車とか、そこから新車に変わっても、グリップしない車でも全開で行ってたのね。で、俺は怖いの我慢して行こうと思ったけど、まだ最初の頃はそれがいけなくて、彼がいかにすごいドライバーかとか勇気があって、リアルレーシングドライバーだってのを本当に思い知らせたアンドレアだよね。
Andrea, he didn't give me specific advice, but when we looked at the P1 system, the data system, for him, I looked at his data, and whether it was an old car or a new car, he was always going full throttle. I mean, he was on the gas, not the gas, but you know what I mean, full. And so I think, and I was always a little bit hesitant. I wanted to be like him, to be at my fastest, but I wasn't able to. But for me, he was a real racing driver. That's the impression I have of him. He was very courageous. He was just all in every single race, whatever car he had.
That's great to hear, because that's how, to me, a racing driver should be. As you say, it's a real racer, and that's lovely to hear, because I always thought that results don't tell the story of a driver, and certainly with Andrea. And obviously, it's very sad he's no longer with us, which is very, very sad. I think it's safe to say the 93 car wasn't great. The Tyrrell wasn't good that year. It was an old car, and you had the accident with Mr. Suzuki in Brazil, and it was so unreliable. It kept going wrong. The engine, the gearbox, everything just kept going wrong. But in 1994, the car was so much better. Were you surprised at how much better it was in 1994?
まあ、ハーベイ・ポストレットウェイトさんがフェラーリから来て、で、ザウバーで使うようなはずだった車をそのままティレルで、作ってて、それが94年のスタートから使うことになったけど、もう乗った瞬間に、もうあのマシンは、あんなにいいマシンはとにかく速い戦闘能力のあるマシン乗ったことがないから、もうそれに尽きるね。
何さんが使っていた？
まあとにかくダウンフォースがあってグリップするから、そのテクニックがない僕みたいにでも勇気を持ってコーナーをとにかくブレーキングを遅らせたり早くアクセル踏めば早く走れるっていうね、車で。それでハキネやらミハイレやらみんなもね一緒に走ってるとすごいなっていう、まあ仲良くなれたり褒めてくれたりするのは94年になってからだから。
フェラーリから来た何さんって言った？
ハーベイ・ポストレストウェイトさんっていうね。
うわ、難しい。ポスト
レストウェイト。ハーベイ・ポストレストウェイト。
Harvey Postlethwaite.
So Harvey came to Tyrrell, and then we had a car that was originally supposed to go to Zaver. So we had a great car, and the downforce was great on this car. So even for me, who I lacked a little bit of technique, I was able to go through those corners at my fastest, and I thought, oh my God, this is the car that I wanted. So, and then at this year, in 1994, when we had this new car and then the whole new, not the new whole team, but great guys coming to our team. This is when Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher, they all started saying, hey, maybe he's kind of fast. I started to get recognized.
That must have been lovely to have, to be noticed by guys who went on to be world champions and were already world champions. And it's amazing how a good car can give you the confidence, isn't it, to really go and race. And your first race in the car, you took your first Formula One points with 5th in Interlagos. Now, we heard you talking about Canada and the points and everything there. You must have been so happy to get those first Formula One points.
まあもちろん嬉しかったけど、ただその即座にやっぱりドライバーってその単純な生き物だから5位じゃやっぱりダメで、その自分がテレビの中で見た勝ちたいんだ、優勝したいっていうね。で、そういう方にまた無理はしちゃうよね。
So yeah, I was happy, but I wasn't over thrilled.
Okay.
I wanted to win, and I wanted to be the driver in the TV that I saw.
Yeah.
So yes, I was happy, but I wanted to be happier. I wanted to win.
Yeah. We've heard that a few times. We spoke with a few guys in the last few weeks who have raced at like Daytona and Le Mans and in sports cars, and he said that's the thing of when you're a competitive person, you're happy with what you've done, but you always want to do more, and it's only when you look back at what you did then you get to kind of feel happy about it. But it's understandable, and it's understandable that you wanted to win, because I always thought that car could have won a Grand Prix.
いや、勝てたと思う、本当は。だから、
I agree. I think I would have been able to win in that car.
Yeah.
残念だけど、つまらないそのアンラッキーとか、ドイツとかでも3位、2位に上がって、シューマッハに抜かれて3位走ってて、で、メカニックのちょっとスロットのトラブルで、アクセルが戻んなくなってリタイアしたり、予選が5位とか6位とかもいっぱいあって、いつも早く走れるのにゴールまで本当にたどり着けなくて、あとはセナの事故以降、レギュレーションが変わって、車のダウンフォースを一気にそがれて、それからちょっとこう車がだんだん別の車にはなっていっちゃったんだよね。
So I think I had like you said, I think I could have won, but I had a streak of unluckiness. Especially like in Germany when I was second and Schumacher was third, and then he overtook me. But and then I had a mechanical trouble with my throttle, and I had to retire. All these little unlucky stuff. I was 5th, 6th in the qualifiers, but yeah, a streak of unluckiness. I unfortunately did take place. And after the incident with Senna, there were major changes in the cars, so the downforce had to change. So the car wasn't the same car before and after the incident.
Yeah, sure. We'll come on to the incident with Ayrton and Imola and everything very shortly, if that's okay. You mentioned about Hockenheim, though, in Germany. Again, it was Paul Ryder in the comments. He said, I think apart from the incidents that happened at Imola, a lot of people remember your start of the race in Germany. It was absolutely amazing. I remember on the TV, we were looking at the front of the cars, and all of a sudden this white Tyrrell just came out and came straight through. When you get a start in a race like that, you must get excited. And what's it like in the car when you're making up positions straight away from a start like that?
どんなレースもドライバーはいつも同じことしか考えなくて、今日勝てるかもしれないと思ってるから、トップに立つって子供の頃から見た世界で一番前に出たいんだしか思ってないから、スタートで3位に上がって、アレジがすぐクラッチトラブルで止まって2位走ってて、で3位のシューマッハに次の試験員で 抜かれてまた3位になったけど、結果的にはそのレースでシューマッハもエンジントラブル、トップ走ったゲルハルト・ベルガーもギアに問題抱えたりしてスローペース、後ろで事故があったから、まあ、後ろが離れたから、本当はただ走ってりゃよかったのにって思うけど、リタイアした理由はトラブルだけど、それ以外のところでチャンスを自分が潰したのも、とにかく2位なんて意味が全くなくて、いつも勝ちたいっていう、それも悪い車で勝つからセナとかシューマッハみたいに自分に才能があって少しは世界にアピールすることができるんだっていうコンプレックスをね、消せると思ったから、だからたくさんの人がサポートしてくれてるのに申し訳ないことしたなっていうのはね、ちょっとそのセルフィッシュなとこがね。
Yeah, it was a great start in Hockenheim. But I think for every single driver, it's the same. In their mind, they always want to be there at the top. They always want to be, since they were kids, me included, I wanted to be in the front. I wanted to race first. In that race, Jean Alesi, he something happened to him, and then Schumacher overtook me. And Berga, he had trouble. There was some kind of an accident behind me, so I was way up in the front, and but now that I look back, I think I ruined my own chance. To me, I thought being second means nothing. You have to be the winner.
Sure.
Nothing else. And I thought, unlike Senna and Schumacher, who had the best cars of the time, I had this little kind of crummy little car. And I thought to myself, if I can win, I can prove to the world that I'm the best driver because I don't have the best car.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I was maybe in a sense, I was a little selfish. Maybe I should have just finished the race instead of aiming for the win. But so in hindsight, I think maybe I was a little bit selfish, but yeah, that's what went through my mind at the time.
Yeah.
That's biggest mistake. So I wasn't a genius like Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, but I want to show something. So
Yeah, I think when there's the opportunity to do that, and you've had a good start in a race, and you have the chance to do it, it's absolutely understandable that you want to go and win the race, of course. But as you say, those guys had slightly better cars, perhaps. But no, it was that's one of my memories from when I was young was watching you start that race at Hockenheim. It was great. It was very cool. So thank you for that memory. We do. I mean, if we don't mind talking about it, the obvious thing from 1994 was Imola. I'd spoken with David Brabham, who was Roland Ratzenberger's teammate, and it's always very difficult talking about that weekend. There was the accident that Rubens Barrichello had on Friday, which was a really awful accident. And we know what happened to Roland Ratzenberger on the Saturday. Where were you when Roland had his accident, and where were you when you found out that we'd very sadly lost him?
まあ予選中だったからガレージでいて、で見ててモニターが見えるから心臓マッサージとかしてんのやってて、でみんな首振って、でただし予選が中止にならなかったから、ハーベイとかマイク・ガスコインがどうするって言うから、あの時予選中に再開した時に一番最初に出てったの俺なんだよね。でもそれはなんでかっていうと、実はすごいビビってて、ちょっと前に実の姉も他界してたり、いろいろあったから、まあちょっと病気のことやなんかもあったり、いろんな頭がこんがらがったから、そういうの全部捨てて、俺はとにかくレーシングドライバーだっていうので一番に飛び出していって、でも自分を助けたのは、その時に自分のベストの10位のグリッドを取ったっていうのがね、実際にはさっきまで心臓マッサージをやってた、そこにオイルも流れたり流してる時には、恥ずかしいけど悲鳴を上げて、大声でシャウトしてたけど、でもそれで自分が乗り越えたってことは、今でもプライドで、俺はできるって自信持ってるから。
It was during the qualifier, so I was in the pit, and we
Okay.
saw on the TV monitor that he was getting a CPR.
Yeah.
And but they didn't cancel the qualifiers,
No.
so it went on, and I don't know if you know, but I was the first one to jump out to continue the qualifiers.
Oh, really?
But to I was really scared. Just that weekend or the last weekend, I had lost my older sister,
Oh,
um, and then I had concerns about my own health, so I was really scared. But at that time, I thought, no, I'm a race driver, so I need to go out, and I have to prove myself that I am a race driver. So I went out, and that day or for that race, I won a 10th on the grid. So, but to be honest, looking at the TV monitor, seeing that he was getting a CPR, it really scared me, and I screamed. But to this day, I'm proud that I was able to overcome the fear and to be able to do my job. So that, yeah, it was a sad day, but it it built somewhat of a core in me, and I'm proud that I was able to overcome the fear.
yeah. I should absolutely be proud of that because you know, I didn't even want to watch the qualifying, let alone take part in it after what happened. And yeah, I think you and all the drivers deserve a lot of praise and credit for for getting back in the car and doing that. Um, and we have to come to the Sunday again. I don't want to talk about it for too long because we all know what happened. There was the accident on the start line. You were only 2 cars behind the accident when it happened. Do you remember having to move out of the way and everything? And when the accident happened, did you think, what's happening this weekend? Because all these bad things kept happening.
まあ、そのスタートしてすぐレートとペドロがぶつかって、まあ、1回目のその赤旗があって、まあ、その時はぶつかんないでよかったなと思ったし、で、その後にセナのね、事故があったりして、本当に、まあ、ひどい週末、レース史上でひどい週末だったけど、正直、その、2回目の赤旗でレースが中断した時に、えセナとミハイルが、マイケルが絡んだと思ってたのね。それでも、そしたらマイケルが歩いてきて、今の見たかって言うから、もう僕はセナの車がコースにちょっとかかったところで止まってんのを避けるのでやっとで、状況が分かってないから、でもその人生で一番のそこで自分の最大の今過ちになってるのが、まさか死んだと思ってないから、自分がこれ順位がまた一つ上がったって思ったんだよね。で、実際にそのレースは2ヒート制で、1回目と2回目のタイムの合計でその順位を争うようになったから、まあ、その2位争いとか、週によってはポジション5とか出たりするけど、その次はポジション2って出たりして、もしかしたらだから、表彰台とか勝てるチャンスがあるかもしれないって、自分のことばっかり考えてたんだよね。で、帰りにモナコに帰る時に、高速で一人でそのサービスエリアで、テレビでそのセナのあれが出てて、亡くなったってのが分かったら、まあ、一番やっぱりレースで、その大事なことで勝つよりも、とにかく、ね、仲間とか友達を失うってことだから、そういうのを知らなくてただ走ってたってのは言い訳だけど、今もだから、そのいいレース、自分の中では2位争いはしたんだと思っても、そんなものよりも、もうどうしようもない思い出だよね。
Before Senna's incident, there was a red flag. That was the first red flag.
Yeah.
And then after Senna's accident, the second red flag happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, as everyone knows, it was the worst weekend in history of racing. And, you know, but at first I thought it was Senna and Schumacher. I thought that they kind of mingled and something happened.
Okay.
But then after the incident, Michael came to me and said, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And so at, for the first time, I discovered that, oh, it wasn't the two of them that had got into an accident.
Right.
And I did pass by Senna when he crashed, and you know, I didn't think it was such a serious accident. So in my mind, I thought, oh, okay, now I'm one position ahead because he's out of the race.
Yeah.
And it ended up being we did two heats, and the result was the combination of the two heats. So on the screen, I would see myself on second, and then sometimes on fifth, and I was just, you know, yeah, I didn't know what had happened, and I was just racing, so I was just thinking about myself and my position and my result, and I didn't know. I heard about his passing in my car when I was heading back to Monaco, where I lived at the time,
Oh wow.
and I was just, you know, it just hit me, and I thought nothing matters more than the result means nothing of a race.
Yeah.
You're losing a friend, losing someone you love. That's just keeping being with them and not having to lose them. I for the first time I thought it just dawned on me that that's the most important thing in life.
Yeah. Which is obviously completely understandable. I mean, it for you guys who were involved in the paddock and in the teams and the races. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. I mean, it was bad enough for everyone watching around the world, all the motorsport fans. So I can only imagine what it was like for you guys, and um, it was just an awful weekend, wasn't it? And I, again, I've spoken to a few drivers who were there on that weekend or involved or whatever. You guys have an amazing ability to not forget, but just say, right, you have the next race, the helmet goes on, the visor comes down, and you go again. Which I think to motorsport fans like me and like everyone else is an amazing quality to have. Did you have any doubts about going racing again?
もちろん自分の仕事に疑問も持ったし、まあ、それは前にもさっき言った日本製の車でその後輩というか親友を亡くした時も思ったし、でも恥ずかしいけど、自分が最初にテレビを見て F1 ドライバーになりたい、世界で一番なりたいって言った時から、自分の中では、そっちが勝ってるのは知ってて、だけど、一番大切な、セナの時には、セナはアイドルでヒーローだったから、それを信じられないことが起きたことによって、まあ、結果的にはだから、そんなことよりも一番大切なことを忘れてたことは、やっぱりレースで何が大切ってことを思い出させてもらったというかね。
Yeah, I did have doubts about my job as a driver, but it wasn't the first time that I had lost a colleague, so to speak, because the Japanese driver, my colleague, had passed away too.
Yes.
But I think the core in me was that, okay, there are incidents, but I have to keep going because I want to win, and that's the image that I saw on TV when I was a kid just stayed in me, and it was the core of what drove me to keep on going as a racer. But it is true that after the passing of Senna, it really just hit me that there's more to winning in life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. And there were obviously other incidents. I think Andrea Montemini had a big accident, and the following year, I think Carl Wendling had a big accident. Pedro Lamy had a big accident at Silverstone. It was just one of those years that seemed to test everyone's mental strength in Formula One. But no, thank you very much for talking about it. I appreciate it. It's not easy as drivers and everyone. The rest of the season was, was pretty good. There were some strong results. At the end of it, though, there were rumours that you were going to join a top team. There were rumours of a top team. I see people in the comment section are saying it must have been Benetton because of the sponsorship. Can you say which team it was that you were able to, that you may have been able to join?
まあ、その噂にもいっぱいあった通り、ベネトンからオファーが来て、最終戦のそのヘレスの、スペインのヘレスってところでレースが終わって、その時も予選6位だったのが、エンスとしてスタートできなくて、ビリから追い上げて、最終ラップにベンドリンガーをインサイドから最終コーナーで抜いたんだけど、抜かし返されて、フィニッシュラインは 7位になったんだけど、で、落ち込んでたら、フラビオ・ブリアトーレから横のホテルに呼ばれて、で、まあ、その前にフランク・ウィリアムさんとかからもポルトガルで呼ばれたりはしたけど、正式にちゃんと契約書とペンを渡してこれ書いたら乗れるぞって言われたのは、そのフラビアの時ので、マイケルからも来年よろしくねって言われて、まあ、そんなことがあったっていうだけで。
Yeah, the rumors were correct.
Okay.
It was after the race in Spain. I was sixth on the grid, but then my engine didn't work and I wasn't able to start. So I started the race from the bottom, and then at the end I managed to finish seventh. Briatore from Benetton, he told me to come to the hotel next to the circuit, and he actually did have a pen and a contract for me. And even Schumacher said to me, he said, "Okay, see you next year as my teammate." Before the opportunity from Benetton, I was called by Frank Williams as well. But for him, it was just discussions. There wasn't a contract ready for me. He was just asking me. But Briatore he did actually. We met with a contract in front of me.
Wow, I didn't realize it had got that advanced. So you just mentioned about Williams. They're my local team. The headquarters is about 30 miles that way, so they're my local team. So this is great. Obviously, we don't have to go into the details of why you couldn't sign the contract, but I guess it was difficult that you weren't able to sign the contract at the time because of what was going on with you.
まあ、細かく話したくなければ話さなくてもいいんですけど、まあ、契約を結局最終的に結ばなくて、それは残念だったんですかって。
今考えると残念だね。日本人って多分外人からはアホじゃないかって思われるかもしれないけど、やっぱりそういう大事なことをちゃんと書いてみんなに相談してとかね。それで日本タバコさんがティレルもスポンサーしてるし、ベネトンもスポンサーしてて、そのスポンサーが一つになっちゃうっていうのもバジェットが、それいろんな調整事があるし、だから一つはなんかそういうので、ちょっと待ってみたいなのもあったのと、もう一つ最終的に、その一番のミスで馬鹿げた失敗というか、なのは、ティレルで早く走れてたから、ベネトンで翌年ジョニーが乗った時に、まあ2回勝って表彰台いっぱい乗ってるけど、それを僕が同じようにラッキーで、そのポディウムに何回か乗れたり、1回ぐらい勝ってるよりも、ティレルでもしそれを証明する方が、自分には才能があるっていうことを見せられるんじゃないかっていう大失敗をしたよね。
So looking back on my own life journey, I do regret it that I didn't sign the contract with them. But I don't know, maybe it's a Japanese thing, but when, not just in racing, just in general, when opportunities like this come, you think about all the ties that you have with your current situation. So you go back and discuss everything with all the people who are involved. And another thing was that Japan Tobacco, they were sponsoring Tyrrell and also Benetton, and then there was an issue about them. Okay, was it going to be is it going to be just one team now that they're going to sponsor, and this and that, kind of like a political issue as well. And I guess I wasn't able to make a decision on my own. I think that's the most easiest way to say it. So I didn't sign the contract. And also, I did mention it earlier in one of our conversations, but I thought, okay, if I go to Benetton and win, it won't have the same meaning if I win at Tyrrell,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and at the time, now that I think about it, it's kind of stupid that I thought that way. But I thought, no, if I win at Tyrrell, it's going to mean much more than winning at Benetton. So, yeah. But like I said, I think it was a stupid mistake.
Okay. I mean, and I guess the other thing as well is you would have been teammate to Michael Schumacher, which is that must be very, very difficult. It's like someone being, say, like being Michael Andretti as teammate to Ayrton Senna. It must have been very, very difficult, but I guess we won't know. But I think we can understand why it didn't happen. But it would have been nice to see you in a Benetton if possible, but never mind. It's I'm just looking at the time quickly. Just want to move on to 95, 96 with Tyrrell. It seemed like they were quite similar seasons to 1994 in terms of results and things like that. Was there any real development in the car, or did things just kind of stay still, or how did those 2 years kind of play out?
結局、映らなかったのが大失敗っていうのは、結論で言うと、結果が出てなかったからそうなんだけど、95年とかも、例えばミカが来て、ミカはすごいいいドライバーで、その後、フェラーリ行ったり、トレータでね、やったりして、で、一緒にやってても、例えばスパで同じように今度雨が降ってきたスリックの中で、僕とミハエルだけがスリックで、他の人よりも6秒も7秒も早く走ってて、4位まで追い上げて3位のマーク・ブランデルに、マーチン・ブランドルに追いついて、よし、抜けると思ったら、セーフティーカーが入ったんだよね。それで、タイヤが冷えてクラッシュしちゃうのよ。馬鹿げてて、タイヤ温めようと思ってアクセル踏んでね。でもそういうバカで失敗していい結果が全く出せないのは全部自分のせいなんだけど、変な話がレース始めてから早い時は速さというかね、だけにこだわったりなんかそういうふうにしてて、結果的にシューマッハやなんかみたいにその歴史を作った人たちと比べると、F1 でチャンピオンを取る器では全くないっていうことに気がついて、その車とかエンジンとかタイヤとか関係ない山登りに戻ろうと思ってね。で、ミナルに移ってからそういうオファーはまだ続いてたけど、引退を決めたんだよね。
So, yeah, like I said, in hindsight, not signing the contract with Benetton was a mistake. But still, nevertheless, 95 and 96 was a pretty good season. Mika Hakkinen came to the team.
No, Mika Salo.
Mika Salo
Yeah.
came to my team, or to our team, and history proves that he turned out to be a great driver. He went to Ferrari. So, the two of us, I think we were good, especially at Spa. We're probably one of the very few who were on slick tires, but we were 6 or 7 seconds faster than everyone else. But then an incident happened. Brando came. He overtook me, and then there was a safety car that came in, and then I wanted to keep my tires warm, but in doing so, I crashed. So, all this and that's happened. When I look at it, it is of course my fault with the stuff that happened. But when the car was in good condition, I was really fast. I know that. But the results, like you said, the results always don't tell the story of the driver. But but I realized that I am not Schumacher. I wasn't going to be the historic racer who will leave a footprint in Formula One. So then I moved to Minardi, but and then I knew my time was up, so I decided to retire and go back to the origins, so to speak, that I was doing with my dad, to back to the mountaineering and back to the mountains.
Yeah. And it's good that you mentioned about Minardi, because everyone loves Minardi, but it's because they weren't that good. Everyone loves them. As I said, I've spoken with a couple of guys who have driven for Minardi, and they were. You weren't going to win a race with Minardi, were you? But I guess it was difficult to announce your retirement, because you did so at Suzuka, wasn't it? And we saw it was quite an emotional thing. But I guess it was time just to finish in Formula One then.
まあ、変な言い方だけど、翌年もそのジャンカルロからは残ってくれとかっていうのもあったんだけど、勝てないドライバーが一番になりたいと思ってテレビの中の世界に飛び込んだのに、お金もらって、ただそこに走っててのは人生で時間の無駄だっていうのが自分の答えだったんで、自分の足で世界で一番高いところに立ったりとか、そういったところで新しいチャレンジをした方がいいと思ったんだよね。
I was offered to an extension in the contract, but I thought, I wanted to be the racer that I saw on TV, and I didn't want to get paid as a racer who I knew I wouldn't be winning. So to be paid to race and not to win, to me, I thought it was a waste of time. So that's why I decided. And then I thought, okay, I'm ready for a new challenge. I want to stand at the highest mountain in the world. So I went to mountaineering.
Yeah, that's great. And I really admire that. It was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this properly or not at all, because there's lots of drivers who want to keep racing for as long as they can, and they just race just because they can and things like that. And I just think it's great. I think it's great that if you want to do things, you want to be there to win rather than just make up numbers. And someone's just said in the comments, he said that we all love how humble you are and how you can just look back at things, laugh at things. There's no ego. It's just, you just do what you feel is right, and that's the best way to live life, I feel, which is lovely. Just very quickly, we'll touch on mountaineering very quickly, but I also want to talk about the 24 Hours of Le Mans. You've done it 6 times, a completely different style of racing, the endurance racing. Firstly, did you enjoy the endurance racing at Le Mans? And also, just quickly tell us about the class win and finishing on the podium in 1999. That must have been fantastic.
あれはもうとにかく自分の中の一つのすごいメモリーで、もちろん F1 とか1位で自分を証明するんだとは違うんだけど、ルマン24時間っていう栄光のルマンとか映画で見たような表彰台から見たらもう人の海がものすごくて、あんなとこに自分が立てるっていうのは、レース中にファーストストラップ出して最後にタイヤが328キロでバーストしちゃって、勝てそうだったのに勝てなかったのは残念だけど、すごいいい思い出で。
For me, it's a really good memory. It's different from being the winner, being at the podium in Formula One, but nevertheless, I grew up watching. I don't know the English title of it, but the famous movie about Le Mans.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was all about that movie and the crowd and the cheering.
It was like Steve McQueen, wasn't it? Was it Steve
Steve
McQueen?
McQueen? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one. So I was in that movie with the crowd cheering, and then I was able to come up with the fastest lap, and then unfortunately at 328 kilometers per hour, my tires burst, and I was not first on the podium, but nevertheless, it was I have great memories of Le Mans.
That's great. That's lovely to hear. I mean, I just said I've spoken with people who have won the race and done that, and they've just said that every now and again you get a moment when you're driving down the Mulsanne Strait and you think, this is pretty cool. You have that moment of this is good. No, that's lovely. You also raced in like Japanese touring cars, and you got to race a Nissan Skyline, which I've always wanted to do. That must have been great as well in the touring cars.
まあ、ちょっとそういうことしちゃ本当はいけないんだけど、もうツーリーカーでやってた時は、山登りをやるためにお金稼がなきゃいけなかったから、青春でこう、神風と言われて、もうなんかミスしたら、バカだ、アホだとかって言われても、アクセル踏んで貫き通した時のとは違って、まあ、アルバイトしてるような感じで、トラックの運転手やってるみたいな感じで、正直言うと、モチベーションは、まあ、もうなかったねっていう。
I shouldn't be saying this, but I only did those races to pay my bills, to climb the mountains that I wanted to go, because mountaineering is super expensive too. So yeah, it was fun, but the motivation wasn't there. Yeah, everybody called me Kamikaze Ukyo, and people called me, oh my God, what a joke, and this and that. But I was always full throttle, but doing the touring car races, I didn't really have the motivation. It was fun, but it was just a job.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Just for the record, I don't think any of us would ever say you were a joke or anything like that. We all absolutely loved watching you. It was fantastic. Mountaineering, it's obviously a passion of yours. It's in your heart and for your father as well. And I actually had a look at some of the mountains that you've climbed. It's incredible. You've climbed like Mont Blanc here in Europe. I went up on the cable car. I didn't climb it. I went the easy way. You've done was it Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Elbrus? You've done Aconcagua. You've done like Denali and Cho-Oyu and Mount Fuji. And does it provide you with the same adrenaline rush or the same buzz that you got from racing cars? I imagine it would.
多分だから山登りとかって、これを聞いてる人たち、モータースポーツみたいに理解をできないと思うんだけど、まあ僕にとっては、レーサーを目指すのと同じように子供の頃にやってた、やっぱりチャレンジングな場所で、今言ったみたいなキリマンジャロだとか、アコンカグアとかってなんてのは、トレーニングに行ってただけで、本当はだから壁のバリエーションとか、まあ、もっともっとハードなことを目指してやってるし、やってたから、人には理解できないだろうけど、そこはもう F1 とか、同じようにたった一回の人生をみんな死ぬから、で、山ではもっとレース以上のたくさん仲間を失ってきたけど、やっぱり生きる意味が、とか戦う意味があるから、理解はされないけどやる。うん。アドレナリンは
同じでしたかって F1
同じ、もう。
Yeah. The adrenaline was exactly the same, being a Formula One driver and going up to the mountains. But mountains like Kilimanjaro and Aconcagua, they were just mountains for me to train to go up the highest mountains. And I thought it's not just about the adrenaline rush, but I thought to myself, you only live once. So, and with the mountains, I think I've lost more people, more friends than in the racing industry. So it's yeah, but yeah, I thought you live only once, so I wanted to give myself a challenge, a new challenge.
Yeah, that's amazing. Again, that's just the best attitude to have. I always say we're here for a good time, not a long time. So if you have the chance to do something, go and do it. One thing I do want to talk about, we don't want to talk about it too much. There was an issue you had, was it Mount Fuji in 2009, where you were reported as being missing. I remember, because obviously you'd been out of racing for a while, and when I saw the news that you were missing, I was like, is that the same guy? And obviously it was. That must have been very, very difficult because I understand 2 people were lost as well on that climb, which we don't have to go into. But that must have been very scary.
まあ、今だからまあ言える部分でもあるけど、事故はそうやって車でも山でも起きるけど、まあ、その時はだから親友であり、一緒に会社をやってきた仲間であり、失って自分も立ち上がれない日々が長いこと続いたけど、まあ今はもう一度そのイモラでその予選で一番先に出てくる時と同じように、すべての起こること、例えば会社に何かがあったとしても、例えば震災とかああいうディザスターが起きても、自分が病気になっても最後の瞬間まで諦めないで努力して一生懸命やるっていうしか残ってないから、だからまあ、自分の人生をね、ただエンジョイして楽しんでるけど、その時は、まあ、だから気を抜いちゃいけないなっていうか、事故っていうのは起きるから、でもそれをいつまでもね、そういうふうに気にしててもしょうがないから。
I think I can finally now talk or say that whether it be racing or whether it be mountaineering, accidents do happen. Of course, we all hope that it doesn't, but it does happen. And in Mount Fuji, the 2 of them were, well, one was my best friend, my bestest friend, and the other one was a colleague of mine at my company. So it was really hard. It took me a long time to get back on my feet. But you know, now I know that whether it's an illness you have or whether it be like the tsunamis and the earthquakes we've had in the past 10 years here in Japan, natural disasters, if something hits you hard, but it's only you can get back on your feet. So things do happen. We hope it doesn't happen. But if it does happen to you, you have to get back up. I think that's the lesson I learned, and that's how I live my life now. It's only once that you get to live.
And again, I think that's something that I'm going to take from this chat is just your attitude to things. You know, you want to be the best, and if you have a chance to do it, you do it. And when bad stuff happens, you carry on. You have to be as positive as you can in life, which is the best way to live your life. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you talking about that. Okay, I always have some fun questions, just a few little fun things that I like to ask everyone at the end, and there's a couple in the comments as well, which I'll come to because we're running a little late. I'll do the ones in the comment section first. Our friend Yasin on YouTube, and there was I think there was a friend, someone else spoke about. Just give me one moment. I'm going to scroll up through the comments here. Adrian King, hello Adrian. They're both asking about like team bosses. Who was the best team boss you had, and how do you remember Ken Tyrrell?
もう、ケンさんは最高だったね。もう俺がするとなんかまるでおじいちゃん家に遊びに行ってるみたいだったけど、何にしても喜んでくれるし、早く走ると、失敗すると、まあ、優しく怒ってくれるし、まあ、ケンさんは、なんかネバーエンディングストーリーに出てくる、ロックマンみたいだったけど、岩石男みたいだったけど、すごい愛すべき、本当の、それこそ映画の中に出てくるような、チームボスだけど、ヒーローっていうか、すごい人だったね、思い出の人はね。
Ken was great. He was absolutely great. Going to his house made me think that I was going to visit my grandpa. You know, he was when he had to scold me or be, you know, if he had to say something hard to me, he would always do it in a gentle way, and he was just so great and such a lovely person. He was like I haven't seen the movie, so sorry if my translation is wrong, but in the movie Never Ending Story, there's a rock man. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
Just translating what Ukyo said, he said Ken was like the rock man in the movie Never Ending Story.
I love that. I've seen that. That's great. I love that. That's
And he was a very generous guy
yeah,
and very warm. Always he was warm. So I guess everybody.
yeah. Oh, that's lovely. And obviously he set up Tyrrell in a shed. He had his old shed, which has now been moved to the Goodwood race circuit, and it's there, and it's going to be there forever, which is going to be great. There's a little bit of history to him. Very quickly, I've just seen a comment here. Chris McMahon, morning, Chris. It says, "Would you ever like to climb like K2 or Everest? Would that be on the list if you could do it?"
今、ちょっとツール・ド・フランスに日本のチームとか、まあ、ヨーロッパの人たちと協力して、自転車、オリンピックで仕事をしてた関係で自転車のをやってるけど、もうちょっと計画はあって、何年か先にはもう一回登る予定でいますっていう。
エベレストでも一回登ったよね。
そうそう、あと60メートルですし、まあ、
K2 は
秋から冬に、K2 はね、横のガッシャブルム一歩っていうのに行ってて、まだ登ってない。
So before I tell you what's on my bucket list, at the beginning of when we were greeting each other, Richard, I mentioned to you that I have a professional cycling team,
Yes.
and my dream now is to take my team to the Tour de France, and so I've had the team for a number of years now, more than 10 years now, but now I've set my foot and said that we are going to the Tour de France. But anyway, so I worked at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics as well. I was a cycling manager, so I've been in cycling quite a bit now. But anyway, so after I take my team to Tour de France, which is a long-term plan, I will go back to the Everest. You know, I did go to the Everest. I was 60 meters short from the summit. I could not reach because of weather conditions and stuff. I could not reach, but yes, I will go back to Everest. That's on my bucket list. And K2 as well. I didn't climb K2, but I climbed the mountain next to K2. So yes, they are on my bucket list.
Wow, that would be amazing. That would, well, and obviously we wish you all the best of luck with the Tour de France and with the climbing as well. So someone just said it'd be great if you could climb Everest, but he said I imagine that you'd want to be the first back down as well because you want to win. It's great. No, that's lovely. Okay, just some fun questions that I mentioned here. I heard somewhere that when you were signing autographs, if the fans were rude, you wouldn't sign your name. You'd sign about food and things like that. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. サインをね、そうそう、その写真にサインを日本語で書いてくれって言われたの。で、どうせ漢字読めないだろうと思って、その大きな写真に、広東風チャーハンって書いたの。
それって、そのファンが失礼だからそう書いたの？
うん、違う。全然失礼じゃなくて。
The story is half true. It's not because the fans were rude. There were times when people would come with the portrait of me and asking me to sign it, to autograph it in Japanese. And I thought, oh, well, they're not going to understand Japanese anyway. So I would write things like Chinese Canton traditional fried rice.
Yeah. で、そしたら、その写真が写真展用だったの。
But what I found out later was he wasn't a fan actually, or maybe he was, but it was an official photograph that was going to go up somewhere, and I didn't know about it. So I thought, okay, you know, write whatever I want. Chinese.
Everybody asked me what is meaning of this Chinese character. Oh shit! I mean Chinese fried rice.
Oh, I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. I always liked your helmet, your the graphics and the design on it. Where did it come from? Was it just something that you came up with?
高橋徹さんっていう、もう日本で亡くなっちゃったんだけど、すごい速いレーシングドライバーがいたんだけど、その人のカラーリングを模した ちょっと色のあやが変えてるんだけど、で、その人がセナの前の自分のヒーローだったというか、アイドルだったかな。まあ、
So there was a Japanese, really a good, great Japanese driver by the name of Toru Takahashi,
Yeah.
and he was my hero before Senna.
Right.
And the coloring that I used on my helmet is kind of an homage to the colors that he had used.
Okay, that's great. Lovely. I like that. Like a nice tribute. You obviously said he was your favorite driver. You mentioned you wanted to be that driver that you saw on the TV. Who was that driver that who was the guy who was there that you first thought, I want to be him?
F1 をテレビで初めて見て、こういうレーサーになりたいって言った時の、このレーサーっていう特定のレーサーはいましたかって。
かっこいいなと思ったのは、とにかく映画とかね、その後レースが好きになって見たときに、F1 の映画とか見たときに、とにかく破天荒でかっこよかったのは、ビルヌーブなんだよね。だ
So
け
it
ど
was
息子のジャックと会ったらファンをやめたな。
so it wasn't actually him that I saw on the screen, but after that first shock of watching Formula One on TV, then I watched movies and stuff. But to me, the coolest driver was Gilles Villeneuve.
Yes.
But then I raced with his son and like so.
ジャック。He has completely different Jill.
Oh. I won't ask any more about that. That's okay.
Maybe no one watching this program, so I don't say
Maybe.
anything.
It probably won't be. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. It's fine. Okay. Three more. What was the best racing car you've ever driven?
Till 022.
022. That was the 94 car.
94.
Yeah, 94. Lovely. Do you have a favorite circuit or that you drove on?
Absolutely Silverstone.
Yes. I thought you were going to say like Suzuka or Spa, but Silverstone. Excellent.
Silverstone.
That's good.
I never lost against my teammate at Silverstone.
There you go. That's it. That's why. Okay, this is the last one. It's a horrible question. I ask it to everyone, and I don't know why, because there's no answer to it. But you've raced against some amazing drivers. I'm just going to name, you got guys like Jan Magnussen and Yannick Dalmas, Andy Wallace, many Japanese drivers from your homeland and on the world stage, Martin Brundle and John Watson and Derek Bell and Alesi, Warwick, Glamours, Leto, Blundell, Alboreto, Tom Christensen, Pirro, Berger, Patrese, Mansell, Prost, Hakkinen, someone called Schumacher and Senna, someone. Was there any that were maybe not the best, but who impressed you the most when you were racing them?
No doubt. So it's Ayrton Senna.
Yeah. I thought it might be. No, that's great. It's been 2 hours. We've gone on a lot longer than I had planned, but firstly, thank you to everyone who's tuned in. There's been some lovely comments. They said that they said that Ukyo is a gem. He said he's a diamond. So and it's been informative. It's been funny. Everyone's loved it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week. But the biggest thanks, of course, go to you both in equal measure. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely brilliant speaking with you. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, guys. It's been great, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you soon.